Look at all this loot! DJ, none for you! Blarg! Blarg! Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and I am a shameless fan of getting free stuff. Especially neat, weapony stuff. So, I was sent this landmine previously, and these ones are pretty nifty. They have both a tripwire setting, so you can just hook the trigger up to an actual tripwire, and then when it gets pulled, it goes off, boom, which is neat. It does have legs, so you can properly either stick it into the ground or just use them as a bipod, basically. It comes with a rechargeable battery and a cord for recharging it. That's just USB. The other option for detonation is it does come with a remote clacker, and that takes AA's, and when you turn the mine on, the light turns on. When you turn the clacker on, it blinks, and then when it stops blinking, that means it's paired. And now, as you can see, it triggers the release mechanism. So those are pretty nifty. The downside to this whole system, of course, is that tripwires are not the best of options, especially not in our hobby. They do give you a tripwire spooler, and that's pretty nifty. But tripwires, not the greatest of options, especially in, like HVZ or something like that, where people are going to be running and, Anyway, and the clacker only works if you have line of sight, obviously, and can see when to set it off, which you may judge it wrong, set it off too early, set it off too late. So they have come out with a Mark II that they recently sent me, and this one uses motion sensor, or thermal sensor. I'm not sure what it's actually detecting, but it detects a people. So they've clearly been retrofitted, and somewhat crudely. They've cut a hole to put a switch on the top, and they've cut a hole to put a button on the top, and they're just kind of exposed, and the holes are not very cleanly cut. And then they've clearly drilled holes to add the two sensors, though those look much cleaner because it's all covered up. But this one operates, it still has a tripwire, so, you could still just have it manually set off by a tripwire. But to do the remote, or the detection system, you first use the switch in the back to turn it on, and the light will come on and stay on until you push the button on the top. The light then goes out, and seems to be a bit of a delay, and then it's armed, and now it will detect, and then it will reset itself, push the button, give it a second, and now it is armed, which is pretty darn cool. I don't know what the range of these is yet. It's, of course, raining here, so I don't want to take it out, especially with the exposed bits on the top. And I suppose I could do some basic tests here in the shop. You wouldn't want it to have a particularly long range, because you wouldn't want the effective range of the sensors to be further than the kill zone of the device. So, much more than about 15 feet, and you're probably not going to effectively hit anybody. Other than that, they load and fire the exact same way. It's kind of this little dual catapult thing, slingshot mechanism, which sounds horrific when it fires, but that's neat. One thing that surprised me was that it no longer has the clacker option, which the reason this surprised me is because it came with a clacker. Now, I don't know if there was just something weird or hinky with mine, but I kept trying to get it to pair, and it would not pair with this mine. It worked fine with this one, so both clackers that I have work fine with this mine, but this one doesn't. So I finally opened up this side panel, because this is the switch you normally use. You turn it on to turn the mine on for this one, but this switch didn't seem to do anything that I could tell. So I took the two screws out and opened this panel up, and sure enough, the board with the remote antenna and this switch have no cables going into it at all. So there's a new board up here that has all the cables going in that I assume is operating this, and I don't know if that's intentional or if I got a lemon, someone just didn't finish putting it together, or if the two are mutually exclusive. I haven't yet experimented to see if you could pull the little, because they use sockets, if you could pull the cables off of this one and plug them into this one to revert back to it being remote. I opened this one up and took a look, and yeah, there are supposed to be 3 sets of wires going into it, but I don't have any way of identifying which ones, and I wouldn't want to plug the wrong ones in and fry something. So what I ended up with was one mine that is set by either tripwire or thermal detection or whatever. Like I said, I'm not sure what the actual detectors are. What is neat is that they do actually supply extra caps. So in the event that these get, dirty or worn out or scuffed or something, the caps just pop off and you can put new ones on, so you don't have, so that it'll continue to detect. But it does mean I do now have 2 clackers for this one. You can't pair 2 clackers at the same time. It'll only pair to one of them. But it's just nice to have a spare in the event that I, lose it or misplace it or something. You could also have, this would allow me to have clackers for 2 different teams, and whichever team can get to the mine and pair the mine to their clacker, it would then work for them and not the other team, which would be an interesting, game mode, I suppose. Yeah, so definitely need to take both of these out and run some tests on them, see, they appear to be absolutely identical as far as functionality, but I'd like to figure out what exactly the effective range of these are, and I'd like to work out what the effective range of the sensors are. So once I have some decent weather, I will definitely look into that. The only noticeable difference that I've been able to see between these, aside from the retrofitted parts, is that the newer one has paint on the front. It's got the hash marks as well as the front end toward enemy painted on them. Both of them still look entirely too realistic to be particularly comfortable. I should probably paint them at least a little bit. I mean, it's nice that they're actually camouflageable, but at the same time that does, they look remarkably like a real Claymore mine from a distance. Not that a lot of people have access to Claymore mines, but you never know. This one was, I believe, sent to me by tacticalxmen.com, or at least that's the person I've been talking to who keeps asking me to do the video on it, so I assume it's them. So the links for that will be down in the description. I will try to find the links to the non-thermal one. They're probably right next to each other. They did come with instructions, but as you can see, they're not terribly helpful. They're just pictures, and in some of them I'm still not entirely sure what they're supposed to be doing. They do both come with the same safety pin, so that you can keep it from going off when you're moving it. One thing people have recommended, I got so many comments about these, that I should mount one of these to my shield, or to my vest, or to my backpack, or something like that. And the reason that wouldn't work is the catch mechanism is actually very finicky. It's touchy. Just tapping it will often cause it to go off. And yeah, that would be a problem. In order to be able to move around safely with one of these strapped to you, you'd have to have the safeties in, and then in order to use them, you'd have to pull all the safeties out. And that's just not an effective latch, dish, pull a button, and set off a bomb kind of thing. Now, if you knew you were going into a last stand and you were prepared for it and you weren't going to be running about or something, yeah, then I suppose you could probably strap them. They do have a belt loop on the back of them, so you could potentially hook them into your molly. And if nothing else, that's a convenient way to store them until you get to where you're going, and then you pull out the pins and pair them and do whatever else you need to do. So yeah. The other thing, I think I started to do a video on this once and then never quite finished it for lack of an ammo type that I now have and have misplaced again. But I was going to test a whole bunch of different ammo types and see what worked the best, whether rival rounds or half darts or full darts or, just dart heads or what have you. And the item that somebody requested was foam earplugs. And there they are. Yes, I have them. Okay, so when I have good enough weather to be able to test these, I will be doing tests on the various ranges of the clackers, ranges of the senses, different spray patterns of different types of ammo. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, links for both of these will be available. Thank you guys for watching.